Phoebus, don't you remember? You probably missed a month. She has been going through a lot of things, but she is okay. She has allowed me to do a takeover. It's exciting. We're going to speak with Gigi today. You probably met her in episode 24, where she talked about early onset dementia in her family, actually her mother. So I always like to kind of clarify, because I hear people use the word early onset in different scenarios. So early onset is not the first stage. It is a early form of dementia, Alzheimer's, that you get at an earlier age than the 80, at a young age. So just so you'll know that if someone is diagnosed, and I'll say at the normal age, around 80, maybe in their 70s, the first stage is just basically the first stage. It is not early onset. So, Gigi, it's been a minute.
It has. A lot has changed since episode 24.
Yes. And just to let the listeners know, this is probably going to be some sensitive information. So, be patient and gracious with us. And we kind of decided to do this episode because we talk about the journey, and the sad part about the journey is the journey ends. So Gigi mother has transitioned to glory, and Gigi is going to tell us when did it happen, Gigi?
She actually passed away on March 1st of this year, after a long battle for 13 years with younger onset. I remember absolutely everything from the first few days before she passed. She'd been in a nursing home since COVID hit. It was a decision that we had made very quickly because of COVID, and I didn't want her to pass away at home. There was just so many questions regarding all of that. And I have children, my father, just the mental health aspect of it all, I was worried about if she did pass at home. So we just placed her in a nursing home, sight unseen, and she was there until her passing. So just the grief of that, of making decision, of putting her somewhere where you never visited, you never know, you don't know anything about, and then some of the things that happened there, it's a lot of guilt. Automatically.
Yeah, and guilt through the process. So I met Gigi October in the same year that she was placed in the nursing home, the COVID year, 2020. So, and we talked about it a lot, the grief that she had from putting her in the nursing home. And I think I want you to really pull out of this is everybody's values, everybody's expectations, and what we want is different. So, of course, no judgment zone, and some people can't understand when you say, I don't want her to die at home, and some people want people to stay at home, but you have 5 children at home, and so in this journey, many of us have other people to think about. So please be aware that we all have different values, different expectations, and different goals in our caregiver journey, and that there's no right, wrong answers. It's what works for your family.
Yeah, and I think that I didn't realize the trauma attached to it as well. And just watching someone disappear within themselves for 13 years. And so when I say I didn't want my children to see her pass, it's because I'm already traumatized by just watching her for 13 years. They've also watched her for 13 years. And my oldest is 18. So it's like she's watched her best friend disappear for so long.
And some of them even born into her having...
Yeah, and knowing who she was with dementia, not beforehand. And it was one of those, someone always tells me, give yourself grace, give yourself grace. And to me, that was part of me placing her, was giving all of us grace.
Yes. So Gigi's mother was quite amazing, and her journey was amazing and very difficult. So Gigi worked with us at Alzheimer's Arkansas, so I got a chance to see some things that most people don't want to share or they don't realize, and I could see some days her suffering and her mother being very strong. 2020, she was on hospice.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she went on a hospice. It was right during COVID hit, and I remember to the T, the doctor called me and said, "Hey, your mother has COVID as well, and she'll probably die, but we have these experimental drugs. Do you want to give it to her?" And of course, I said yes, because I think that's immediately what you think is you have to keep them alive, even though she was in a very bad place when COVID was hit. I remember hanging up the phone. I regretted it instantly. I was like, why am I keeping her alive? It's in the middle of a pandemic. She may die in that nursing home. We didn't even see her when they took her. I felt guilt instantly. I felt it was selfish of me to tell them to let her live when she wasn't living. She was a shell of who she was. And in that nursing home, she wasn't with us. She was alone. And so I had grief instantly hit me. Guilt instantly hit me. I still had to tell my dad that. I still had to tell my brothers, and now I don't feel as guilty with myself, or I don't hold it on my shoulders like I did. But I did for a long time.
You did.
I did.
And another amazing aspect of her mother, and we always say, don't give up. At the end of the day, when we have faith, we know that everyone has a time. We do not know the time. So Gigi's mother, I remember the day they took her off hospice. Explain why they took her off hospice.
Well, they pretty much said that she was at the end of it, and that it was really not doing her any good. She wasn't thriving or anything else like that.
No, when they took her off. Remember when they took her off, and because she had gained weight and she was doing better?
Yes. So she's lost tons of weight. She was a skeleton, and all of a sudden she decides she wants to keep her weight on, and that's what I feel.
So how much did she weigh when she went in?
She was like 40, less than that. She was tiny. It was insane because she could not keep anything weight. So they would give her nutritional drinks. They were just and she was eating, and she was eating, and she was eating, and she was eating, and she was eating. And I'm like, look at this little chubby bunny. I was like excited. And it's just one of those things. I'm like, she has dementia. Why are we even trying to worry about her weight? Let her eat whatever it's just one of those things where in our brain, we're still thinking about health. Yeah. But after 10 years, 12 years of having your brain slowly disappear within itself, you always told me to give myself grace, and I never did. It was that moment I was like, I don't care anymore.
I was like, give yourself
eat
grace.
whatever you want.
So I was like,
she was eating.
Let her have.
Yeah.
Let her be happy. It's her quality of life.
Yeah.
And then she received a call from hospice that said she doesn't need hospice anymore. Yeah. And you were upset that day. Remember?
I was. It's like you're mourning, and then you're happy, and then you're mourning, and then you're happy. And it's like, honestly, I felt like I was, in my mind, I'm like, just let her go. Just take her. Why are we doing this? Why is she going for 10 plus years with this disease? Why? I felt like I was happy, but I was sad. It was like all these emotions, but I'm exhausted. Mm-hmm. She has to be exhausted. She's trapped in herself. And that's what I always kept thinking. But I was happy, but it was just like...
So she was happy to see that she had gained weight. Yeah. She was, and you used the term loosely, doing better.
Yeah.
Because she was still not engaged. Mm-hmm. She was still
not even looking towards the ground. She would hear us, but she may perk up. It was mainly with my dad's voice. She would even make me move her hand or something.
Yeah. So hospice, and when I talk about hospice and educate about hospice, people say they think it's a death sentence, and I was like, no, if they get better, they'll take them off. They can provide them with services. And Gigi was an example of, although she was actively, in a way, passing away, she had become too healthy to stay on hospice. So Gigi was very upset that day, and with some education, was able to, I'll say, accept it.
Yeah. It's hard because, when you see your loved one go through all these transitions and stages, it's just, and then the ups and downs of it, it's exhausting. And so after a while, you're like, you're on a high and you're like happy, but you know that sooner or later, you're going to go down and it's going to hit like bricks. And so, yes, you have that moment of happiness, but in the back of your mind, you're waiting that moment where you're just going to get slammed by those bricks.
And even with the slamming of the bricks, I'll use your term, she stayed off hospice for about how long?
A couple months.
It was more
Years?
It was almost like
a year.
Almost a year.
Yeah. Because it was like insure. Like they were, it was that. Yep.
And then you got the call that she had to go back on hospice.
Yep. And they were like, oh, she's not really taking in liquid. She's not even taking in food. What do you want to do? And usually I always check with my family, my brothers and my dad. I'm like, hey, what do you want to do? I was just like, let her go. Let her go.
And how long after? She stayed on hospice a while still.
She did. And honestly, all of this feels like a dream. Like when I look back at it, it's all like blurred dream. Because what I remember clearly is her death. Because that has overcome everything else. Because the grief attached to her death is so huge. Everything else that came before then is like a shadow. And so when you say remember, I'm like, I don't.
You don't.
I don't. It's like a shadow of what? Because that moment like turned my life completely around.
So I remember she did something that had you so excited. She engaged with you.
I think she maybe looked me in the eyes or something, because she never looked me in the eyes. She never, my dad's voice, she always would like respond somehow, but me, it was like nothing. And so she did something that I saw meant she heard me. Yeah,
you went in to see her one day, and you came back and you was like, she looked at me.
Yeah, and it was just, and even if I imagined it, it still was like she looked at me.
The greatest gift.
That's it. Because that, to me, that meant she saw me. And for all these years, she never saw me, And so that was my one moment that, we have to hold on to those moments, whether the moment, the last time you hear them say your name, whether it's the moment last time they give you eye contact, which people don't understand how huge it is, especially when your loved one has dementia, for them to actually look you in the eye. It's like they're acknowledging you. Even if they don't know who you are, it's like they're acknowledging you. And that's how I felt. But I felt she knew me. I felt when she looked at me, she knew it was me. And that's something that keeps you going.
So let's talk about that hard conversation we had, and you kind of talked about it a little bit. Waiting.
Yeah. So they told us that she was going downward, and this all happened within like 5-6 days.
So let's go further back to the waiting. So over 10 years, and she had been in the nursing home, had COVID, made it through all those things, on hospice, off hospice, because she was doing better. And let's talk. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you felt when you were like, why is she just continue to suffer? Let's talk about some of those feelings, because those are real feelings for people.
Yes.
My aunt kind of dealt with it, and like a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but the feeling of like, why is my loved one still suffering?
Oh, yeah. I was angry. I was like, what the hell? Excuse my language. I was like, what is going on here? This is not fair. That's what I thought. My mother used to work for the Catholic Diocese. She was very religious. Her strength came from her faith. And I'm like, of all people, like me, I'm a heathen. But what is this wonderful? You think about your loved one and everything they've done, who they are, and just the whole circle around them. And you're like, why them? But also, why for so long? Like, what is the purpose? And that that was the main thing, the purpose. What is, I feel like everything happens for a reason. If we, if that's what we say all the time, everything happens for a reason. Well, what's the reason that somebody lives for 13 years with dementia?
And then the last, I know, 3 years
Yeah.
took a very emotional toll on the family.
Yeah.
Your father.
Yeah. Financially. Everything.
And you dealt with it because you talked about it a lot. And every time the nursing home called or you went by, you're like, why is she still here? And I just remember I remember anger, the pain in your eyes. And so I want people out there to know that we say it's hard all the time. And what's really hard on one part of this is outside of the disease, the emotional part that we go through, and we feel guilty for feeling the way we feel.
Yeah, I felt bad. I felt, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, you love your mother so much, you don't want her to feel this way anymore. You love her so much, you don't want to see her like this. But at the same time, it's like, I'm exhausted. I can't imagine how much she is trapped within herself, how exhausted she is. And I can't deal with this. I can't look at my dad and say, I'm look at people and say, yeah, I'm fine. I can't keep lying to my friends. I can't keep lying to myself, to my partner. I can't keep calling my brother saying, hey, this is what's happening. I was just exhausted of being that person who had to be for everyone their go-to person, their information person, their what's happening now, or asking questions. And then still have to pretend that everything's okay when everything's not okay. And that's hard.
Yeah.
And when you do it for 13 years and you don't even know, when you get into this disease, you barely even know what it is, but you know you took your grandmother, you know it's taken a couple of siblings, my mother's siblings, you know the aftermath of it, but you really don't know what it is to go through it until you do.
So how long did your mother last longer than anyone else in your family, as you remember?
I don't think so, because I think her oldest sister may have lasted that long, my Aunt Iris. But I want to say there was 6 who has definitely had some sort of dementia out of 12 living. So 6 or plus or more. But there were a total of 14, but yeah, so... Or they had Parkinson's, or maybe had dementia, but it was undiagnosed.
So when we talk about early onset, I just would you tell us the age she was diagnosed?
She was diagnosed at, was it 54? 54? I'm trying to think of how old I was, or how old my child was. I base my age on my children's age. So, yeah, Yana's probably had to be probably 54, 55, yeah.
And did you notice things prior to?
Oh, yes. She used to work for the Catholic Diocese, and so I would usually go see her, and she was very meticulous because she was a seamstress and an artist, and so everything was always in place. Stuff stopped being in place. I would go into sewing machine. She didn't know how to thread her sewing machine, and that was like the light bulb of it. She's been sewing her whole entire life. And that machine she's had most of her life, and she couldn't thread the needle.
And you knew something was wrong.
I did, and I was like, do you have your glasses on? You know, maybe it's your glasses, maybe it's the light, maybe it's something. But then it's her work. She was saying that they were saying things to her, being mean to her, little things like that just... I didn't think it was dementia. I really didn't. Maybe I knew in the back of my mind, but at the time I was like, man, they're mean. You know, I'd hype her up. Yeah, they're mean. Find a job, you know. Mm-hmm. But no, when I look back at it, there's so many different things that told us it was Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And whether me and my dad and my brothers wanted to believe it, probably didn't.
You had a hard time getting a diagnosis. Let's talk about that, even if you knew it.
Yeah. We did. They wanted to reel everything else out, but it seemed like, how much longer do we have to wait till you even get tested? You know, we're doing all these tests and nothing. 3 months, 6 months, all this time we're wasting matters. And then finally she went in and got it. And I remember the results like it was yesterday. I remember where I was sitting, where my dad's breathing, what the person looks like who told me. Like, that is probably one of my most clearest memories in my life that I have of the results. It's one of those things that really does change your life.
So let's kind of go forward to the last week. The last week.
So she was going downward. And they're like, hey, this is what's happening to her. Her body's kind of not taking in any more liquids, fluids, whatever. You should probably contact, your siblings and tell them what's going on and things of that nature. Tell your dad and anyone else who may want to see her. And I was like, okay. And so I told them, I was like, yeah. But I feel like I kind of am over dramatic a little bit sometimes. So my brothers were like, is she really going down?
Because it's kind of like, we've been doing this for some years.
Yes. Is it really happening? And so I feel like they're just like, okay. So, but then, like, I remember the call, and they told me, like, look, she's going downward. I said, is this end of life? Is that what you're telling me? I use those words, which I learned from Alzheimer's Arkansas. And I said that, and she was like, yes.
Because I found that it's very difficult, even for medical professions, to say end of life.
Yeah.
Like
they were
to be honest,
but to me that was the only way I get clarity. Like, they're like, oh, we're just going to make her comfortable. No, I was like, I need to know if she's dying. And I told them, I said, because my brother lives in Dallas, my other brother works. Like, there's family who may want to come from out of state. I need to know this, and I need to tell my dad. Because of course I was terrible at telling anyone anything, because that's just me. I'd rather have everything on my shoulders than to them bear any of it. Mm-hmm. And so when she confirmed, yes, they need to come, I was like, okay, y'all need to come. You need to come. You need to come.
So please take note, listeners. Sometimes you will not hear that it is end of life from medical professions. Like, you're looking for it. Even when it's time for hospice, a lot of times you won't hear it. A lot of people, doctors, healthcare professionals, find it difficult to even recommend hospice. So it's kind of up to you sometimes to advocate, a lot of times to advocate for what you need. So I remember you called me. Do you remember calling me?
I don't remember anything.
So,
like, it's a tearful blur.
I know. So you called me. So it was like learning lessons all through this. So I every step. So that's why I become an expert, because of everyone I come in contact with. I take all these experiences and try to help everyone have a better experience. So Gigi's mother was actually in the nursing home, but Gigi didn't know what to do when they said end of life. So do I contact the funeral home, Carolyn? What do I do? How do I do this? So, and it was after regular business hours. See, I remember. It was after regular business hours, so there was no administrator there. It was, I don't want to call them regular staff, but staff. And she did not know, like, end of life. What do you do? Like, they asked her about the funeral home, and she was like, what
Who's
am I
going to come get her body? I'm like,
what?
They do that immediately? I have no...
Yeah, so I helped her locate and find it, and I was like, they're open 24 hours. They do take calls 24 hours, 7 days a week. So I was like, who do you want to use? Call them, let them know, and what's their protocol? What would they like you to do? So you were able to get that taken care of. So a lot of stuff, and it becomes frustrating when you're in the middle of it. So Gigi was very sad and frustrated because she really wanted to depend on the nursing home or other people to give her guidance, and at that facility they did. But she knows my phone number. I think it's on number 2 for at that point. She probably moved me down since then. But just to say, hey, what should I do? So we're able to get that. And how many days did it take? So when I say take, so I learned this through Alzheimer's Arkansas and some other things. So in my life, I thought death was sudden and it happened and it was over, but death is a process. A lot of times, a lot of people die over days that are actively dying. So it's not today I'm breathing and I stop. It is a process, especially with diseases like Alzheimer's. So how many days would you say she lasted through the process?
In my mind, my days count by my brothers, like, because they were there, and when they had to leave and XYZ. And so maybe 2 days, maybe 1 day. I know it was at least 1 day, 1.5 days, but to me, it was a blur because I stayed there the whole time. Like, I did not leave her at all. And, like, I remember, well, it had to be at least 1 day because my brothers were like, we're going to leave now. We think it's okay. You know, they said she may have 1 more day. And even my dad, when she passed, it was just me and my dad there. Because I was like, I'm not going to leave you and you're not going to leave me. So we're stuck together. So it had to be over, at least over 1 day.
I think it was about close to 2 days.
Yeah. I just remember sitting there. And I remember when she died, I watched her die. I watched her pass. That's the main thing I remember. Everything else, it's like the TV, everything speeds up. Like you're all hugging each other and talking to each other, and then it speeds up real quick, and it's just one person there. That's how it felt. It felt like my brothers were there and other people were there, but it was all sped up. And then all of a sudden, my dad went to the restroom, and it was me, and she died. That's how it felt.
That's how.
Yeah.
So, and then during the service time when you're planning, like everything's a blur. We talked about that. Like you get so busy and like you don't process it because you got so many things to do, right? So then in a couple of days, the people leave. People stop checking on you. And then the reality sets in.
Yeah, it's that. The reality set in, but also I felt a responsibility to my dad. But I was so grieving so much, and I realized I was still really angry. Just so angry. And I just had all these hard emotions and hard feelings. I didn't know which way to go with it, really. But I kept telling myself, I can't imagine how he feels. Because if I'm grieving like this, oh my gosh, I can imagine how he is when he's been watching the love of his life for 13 years disappear within herself. And now that she's finally passed, it's complete. And he even said it. I remember we were sitting there together. It was like 1 a.m. He was like, I have these restrooms. I was like, okay, I'm here. And I was like this. And then I saw her and I was like, and then I closed her eyes. I went over, closed her eyes, and he came out. And I was like, she's gone. He's like, what? He's like, I was here this whole time. And she leaves right when I get up. Right when I get up, she leaves. This happens. And I didn't say anything. I was too, I don't know. I don't remember how I felt. I don't know how I looked. I don't even know if I was crying. Like, I don't remember anything but having that conversation with him and the look on his face. But I'm grateful that he did not see her. Because I see her. I see it all the time. I would never want that on him. I want him to remember her like he did, not like that. So I'm okay with taking that.
I'm going to ask you a serious question. Have you been at grief counseling?
No.
Have you thought about it?
I did in the beginning, and then I let life take me. And you just like, and
so these days I use life has been lifing me.
Yes.
So, but I still, Gigi, I think it's very important, maybe for you to reach out to someone to deal with your emotions.
Yeah.
So, how long are you supposed to grieve?
I grieve all the time. Like I grieved, and it's different. Okay, like I got engaged. I grieve that my mother's not going to be at my wedding. I grieve that she's not going to be there to help me pick out my wedding dress. So I ordered it out of Amazon. Like that. That's how
So
I grieve.
when you
every
think about
single
grieving,
step.
how long do you think you'll grieve?
I think I'll grieve forever.
Absolutely.
Because,
and it's okay.
Yeah. I grieve when my daughter graduated high school and my mother wasn't there, because that was my daughter's best friend. And so I grieve at every single moment. And it's crazy. I'm like, oh, I wish she was here. And it may not be like full on crying, but it's like a tinge of like, I miss her. Like, I wish she saw this. I wish she saw this. Like, yesterday I went to the museum, the Arkansas Museum, and they had Abisa Butler, and she is a fabric artist, and it's brilliant. Her work is brilliant, and I saw it yesterday when I went, and I was like, man, my mother would love to see this. I took a picture of it, put a picture in front of it. I was like, my mother would love to see this. And so that 1 second at that museum, I grieved. And that's how it happens. Like, I had that tinge, I even get it now. It's like a tingle and just a sadness. Like, she would have thought this was so beautiful.
No. She would have.
She would have.
So, what about the guilt of feeling relief?
I attach that to the disease.
Okay.
I think that's how I get through it. I'm like, it wasn't my mother. That was the dementia. Everything that was unlike her is in a box called dementia. And I still have a beautiful, beautiful box that's her. And so whenever I think of that, that's how I truly grieve her and not the disease. Because this box is done with. I threw this box away because she's whole now. So I don't have to even think about that anymore.
Okay. That's a great thought. A box of, this is dementia.
Yeah, this is the dementia box. It's gone. She's whole. She's with God where she wants to be, hanging out with her siblings and her mama and daddy, and she's great. So why do I still have this box? I don't need it anymore.
That's a wonderful thought. I think that's a healing thought. I still think you need grief.
I do need grief counseling.
So, when if there was something, because now you have completed this journey. Now, before we complete the journey, so you were going to, you called me and you said, I don't think I'm going. So Alzheimer's Association, they do a lot of great advocacy work, and they work to make sure that we have the laws and the things we need to help families and research and try to find a cure, like so many great things. So Gigi calls me. It's like the week after her mother passes away. Gigi is supposed to go to Washington, D.C. And she called me and was like, you remember what she said?
I can't go.
You can't go.
I can't
you
go.
You couldn't feel it. You couldn't.
No, I couldn't. I love advocating. I love having it's an amazing platform to tell my mother's story, our story, and especially being a woman, person of color. I feel like 13 years ago, I wish I saw someone like me out there telling their story. And it makes me feel better that I'm helping other people. And to me, it helps my mother live on. And I just couldn't.
But at that moment, you was like, I can't digest even going.
I didn't want to breathe the word Alzheimer's. I didn't want to even talk about it, because all the advocacy I do is because of her. That's what it is. It's because of her, and then it tumbles down to me and my children and everything, our family, and it's such a personal thing. And to go, it was 2 weeks after she passed.
It was like a week.
It was about a week. Yeah, to go a week after she passed, swallowed by Alzheimer's. Like, realistically, everything was that, and I was like, I wouldn't even be able to breathe.
Yeah. So you was like, I don't think I can go.
No.
Do you remember what I said? No.
You going?
No, I did not. I did not say go. I said, we talked about remembering why you advocated in the first place. That if you didn't have to make a decision today, not to, because that's how you feel today. You remember that?
Yeah, like we did tomorrow.
And you called me a few days later and said,
I'm going.
Because you could not stop.
Yeah. And it's actually my fiance, he went with me. He was like, we'll drive together and I'll be with you the whole entire time. And he was. And I think that sometimes it takes like 1 second or a few kind words or just someone literally getting through to you to remind you of why you're going in the first place and why you advocate. And like I used to say, I advocate for my mother, but now I advocate for my children. I advocate for all my cousins and who are getting older and all of us, because realistically, we probably have the gene. So we have to really be diligent about this. And it's something that now it's no longer just for my mother. It's for me. It's for my kids. It's for my family. It's for everyone who's felt that tinge of heartbreak throughout every stage of watching them, because it's different. There's so many stages, and you watch your loved one disappear within each one. That's a grief most people will never ever understand.
So you went.
I went, and it was beautiful. It was exactly what I needed. It was comforting. It was a place where I needed to be. And I think that helped me through it by being with people who understood, people who I saw the year before, where I was a panelist, and so I talked to so many different people, and it was the moment that I felt I was started healing, because I would talk to other people and they would tell me what happened with their loved one or what's going on, and it's just like I never felt alone. In Arkansas, I always felt alone, but there I needed to feel not alone, and I didn't.
People that understood.
Yeah, I feel like I had a whole community giving me a hug and telling me that it's going to be okay.
I'm so glad you
Yeah,
went.
me too.
Because she's hard-headed sometimes.
I'm so hard-headed.
So, your journey, this part of your journey is complete in saying with your mother, but we can hear that you still have fight, like the part, you still have a journey to complete. So, what would you tell someone who is on this journey with their family, feeling like, why is my loved one still struggling?
Yeah.
Like, what advice would you give?
I would tell them to be honest with themselves. Be honest with the ability of assistance you can give them. Be honest with your mental health. Be honest with your family situation. Do not give up yourself to give it to them. Because
So
then
what does that mean, Gigi?
like, don't sacrifice your own health. Don't sacrifice your own mental health. Don't sacrifice your family and pour all into your loved one because whether they're your parent, or whatever, your husband, because you feel obligated or because you just want to. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be drained. When you sit down on that couch, you'll feel like nothing. And your purpose cannot be a person. That cannot be your purpose. Your purpose should always be yourself and to better yourself. And so that means the healthier you are, the better you can take care of them. The more you put into yourself, the better you can take care of them because you're whole. I wasn't whole for a very long time. I let myself disappear into the disease with my mother. And you're not supposed to walk beside them in that. You're supposed to hold their hand and guide them out of it. And so just remember that everything you do is out of love, and they know it. And so you don't have to quit your job. You don't, unless there's ways to go around things, especially now, and to reach out. I wish I reached out more. I wish I reached out, but I wish I did
Continue.
Follow through. Yes.
And so I guess I'll use this word. Don't become a victim of the disease as well. Yeah. It's almost like you had the disease in so many ways. So how would you like for them, because it's hard days. I can remember being in the office with you, so we were dementia at work and dementia at home. And she would have hard days. So what would you say about your mental health? Because you talked about this a lot.
Oh, my mental health was a mess. I would even say it was a mess because I think my mental health was an organized mess because I still had to take care of my mother. I still had to take care of my children. I still had all these things that I had on my plate. So I wasn't able to make it a mess. It wasn't able to be messy. It was a structured mess.
But it was still quite a mess.
Yes, but it was still quite a mess. It was structured. Yes, I had it knocked down, but that structure was tearing me apart, and it was falling apart piece by piece. Whether it was with my relationship with my dad, it was getting harder, or my relationship with my kids. Like, how can you pour into everyone when you have nothing yourself? And so I always said, I faked it till I made it, and that's it. I would do what I have to do to make sure everyone else was okay. And at the end of the day, I was drained and exhausted, and like a shell of myself, a shell of who I used to be.
Yeah. So, are you coming back?
Yeah. I think going to I still go to the association stuff. I still want to interact with Alzheimer's and caregivers and things like that. But I know I have to do it in my time. And so I'm taking my time with it, because she's still very much so always in my mind. She's still, like, everything I look at, it reminds me of her, whether it's flowers, whether it's everything. Like I said, the going to the museum, it's just, I know I'll never, I could probably be like this forever. I don't know, because grief is still so new to me, especially with her. When you're grieving for 13 years and all of a sudden they're gone, it's another different type of grief. And I thought I knew it, but I didn't.
Remember we used to say you grieve twice?
Yes. I feel like I'm grieving like 17 times.
But
I grieve at everything.
But
yes.
Especially like
yes.
the grief when they're alive and you're losing them.
Yeah.
And then the final grief.
Yeah.
And I don't think we talk about the alive grief enough. We don't recognize it, and we don't want to talk about it.
Or the reality of what the grief after they truly are gone. Like when everyone leaves and goes home and the funeral's done and you're in your space by yourself, it's like, I've been grieving for so long. I've been going to the nursing home for so long. I've been doing this for so long. What do I do?
You feel empty.
Yeah. What do caregivers who've been caregiving for 13 years? It's like you lost your identity that's what I felt. I always felt like I lost my identity within the disease of my mother. So who am I? I'm no longer my mother's caregiver. I'm her daughter. But what else? I'm this person's mother. It's like, who am I? You lose yourself. And people don't understand how hard that is. And how the mental health aspect of it is just dangerous.
It is. So... And, of course, you are no longer the person you were.
No.
You don't know who you are.
You don't, and that's it. But exactly, because you've been caregiver for so long. I identified as my mother's caregiver, my children's mother, this person's partner, that. You identify as all that, and you don't know. I didn't identify with... If somebody asked me, who are you? I'm like, well, I'm this person's mother. That's it, and that's not who you are. And so even now, it's still, I feel like I'm not looking for, but I'm still kind of, I found a path, but it's just like, is this where I'm meant to be right now? It's one of those things. But that's kind of with everything when you're starting your life over again. And I think that's what it is. When you're a caregiver for so long, you really do start your life over again. But there's still a hole. There's still like a deep hole of sadness and despair in there.
So I am not lost a parent, but I have friends that do, and this may not be comfort to you, but I hope you can see it, that despite how you lose your mother, especially your mother, there's no loss like that. Like no hole. Like it's going to be, nothing can fill that hole. Yeah. Life is different.
Yeah. It's like every day I think like I need her.
Yeah.
Like every day I'm like, I need her to tell me how to make this bread. I need like little things. I'm like, why am I crying? I know how to do this. I'm a professional. Yeah. So that's it.
Not to take away from the disease at the moment, but the reality of grief, and especially when you lose your mother, people that I know, it's nothing that can fill that void. And I'm telling you that not because I want you to, it's a part of acceptance, but it's also, again, one of those things where, maybe talking to someone can help you. Because nobody's going to fill the hole of your mother. Like you said, who's going to tell you how to bake bread, or when you're used to talking to them every day, or them being your person. I think all of us with our mothers, we know we have somebody. You just know you have somebody to go to at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that void.
Yep.
It,
Yep.
So you're recreating yourself. So life after caregiving may need to be our next.
And it's hard. It's hard. That's especially with me being so involved with Alzheimer's and dementia. It's hard because you don't know who you are. Because when you're taking care of someone, no matter what the disease is, you're attached to that person, but you're also attached to that disease. And it's like, what do I do now? Like, the skills I've had 10 years ago, are they still good now? The skills I've had, or do I even want to do it?
So yeah, you said I don't want to bake again.
Yeah, I don't. And I don't. Like, and everyone's like, you're so good at it. I'm like, I have to do what I feel passionate about. I don't feel passionate about that anymore. But I wonder if it's attached to my mother so much because she's the one who, like, put that in me, and why I loved it so much. It's all because of her. And so sometimes I'm like, is it still attached to that grief? Is me baking still attached to the grief of the loss of her? Is it still attached to those feelings and emotions? So it's something that it really is such a personal journey.
Yeah. So we talked about what you would tell someone as their caregiving. What about when you have children? Because that's a very interesting dynamic, and I have come across a lot of people who are sandwich generations now, taking care of parents and children.
Yeah, it's hard. Yes, I want to say my oldest was like 7. No, she was 5, 6. She was about 6, 7. No, it had to be like 5 or 6 when she was diagnosed. But they would stay with her. My older girls would stay with her, and so they were always with them. And it's trying to find balance and trying to also maneuver around the disease. Like, okay, well, she can watch them now, but things could change, and you don't know how long it could change, or how quick, or or the time-wise of it all. And so it really is one of those you have to keep, like, I feel like I was watching her like a hawk. But at the same time, I feel like I was making things up in my head, too, because I was so paranoid. Like, what if she left the stove on? What, like things of that nature. It was, but you get between, is it safe or is it not safe? Can she really still drive or can she not drive? And it's one of those battles within yourself, because then you don't want to have the talk of, oh, well, I think mom shouldn't drive anymore. Because you've taken away such a huge part of their independence. But we were lucky that she kind of made that decision herself.
Yeah. So as we close and end, first I want to thank you for sharing this very intimate part of your life. And I know it's still hard, and in so many ways it's still fresh. It seems like yesterday almost. So thank you for sharing, and I want you to know that this is going to help plenty of people. Give like some advice about reaching out for help.
I would love to say do it when you're comfortable, but do it when you're uncomfortable. Because you're uncomfortable because you're missing something, you're lacking something. Whether it's knowledge of the disease, knowledge of how to take care of your loved one, knowledge of how to take care of yourself. Reach out before you get to that point, because by the time you get to the point where you truly need it, it may be too far. And you could have saved yourself 5 steps earlier. So definitely do it. And it's okay to do it. You don't even have to tell them your name. You just call them and say, hey, just give me some information on this. I'm taking care of my mother. I'm new. And just can you show me where to go? Or tell me an organization that could help me? Or can you send me some flyers?
So name some organizations.
Alzheimer's Arkansas, which they have great information. They can mail you packets. You can go pick something up. You could go to one of their events. You don't even have to introduce yourself or say anything. You just go just to see what it's about. Also, the Alzheimer's Association, which is huge. You could just go on there, and they have online support. They have groups as well, caregiver support group, just like Alzheimer's Arkansas does. You can find some. You can go to one from them, one from Alzheimer's Arkansas. If they're on 2 different days. Just get as much help as you need. Or even there's hotlines, telephone lines you call. no matter what time it is. And you don't have to say your name. Just say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I just need someone to listen. And that's exactly what they'll do. So you just have to remember that your friends are not your therapists. Your friends do not know what you're going through. They cannot imagine what you're going through most of the time, especially if you're young, because every disease is different. And so always find someone, even if it's just, a stranger, and you just start talking loud. I've cried before in front of strangers. I'm okay with that, because one day that's going to happen. If you keep everything inside, it's going to happen. And it's going to feel terrible, but it's going to feel amazing at the same time.
So, thank you again, Gigi, and thank FIBA for letting us do a takeover and to talk about this subject. I know it's very important because we spend a lot of times talking about the disease, but we do not talk to enough people who have completed that part of their journey. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.